What's going on, everyone? It's Living to Learn. Thanks again for watching my video. Again, if you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel. Helps me out a lot. It also shows me and reminds me that people actually are interested in some of the things that I have to say. So that's always helpful for me to keep going making this content. I personally enjoy it. It's helpful to me. It's actually very soothing, especially during this time of my life right now. It's a very challenging season, but you know what? It's also exciting because with challenges comes change, right? If we embrace it correctly. And I'll get into that a little bit more in this video. But before I do, I just want to thank everybody who has supported me thus far and continues to support me in watching, sharing, liking, commenting on my videos. Obviously, if you'd like to donate financially, that's also very helpful. And it just, allows me to keep on course with these videos and just doing what I love to do, right? Which is a part of, this channel is a part of that. So thank you. And today we're going to talk about what is the fourth phase of the change cycle. We've been going through the change cycle these last few videos. We've talked about discontentment, right? When you're just sick of something just needs to change. Then you have that breaking point, right? You reach that breaking point where you're just like, man, I'm through. I'm done with this. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm not doing it this way. I'm going to change something. Something's going to change, right? And then we make that decision to actually go through with that change. And that's where we find ourselves today. What happens after we make that decision, right? It was decision time. And we decided, hey, you know what? I'm really, honestly, I'm tired of this job. I'm going back to school. Or, you know what? I'm tired of looking the way I look or feeling the way I feel. And I'm starting, I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to change the way I eat. I'm going to, whatever, right? As soon as we do that, something happens in our mind. Now, let me give you a little bit of context as far as what that actually is. Because I think what the problem for you and I is, right? The problem for you and I, when it comes to this part, when we've made a decision, hey, we're going to do something different. We're going to do things different, right? When we've made that decision, I think what's going to be helpful to you and I, and what I think would have changed a lot of things for myself in the past, and what I'm hoping is going to help you moving forward, is to actually understand that there is a real process that takes place in our brain when we make a decision, especially when we're making a decision to do something different. Now, I'm going to read directly from the book. Okay, again, this information I've been getting from this book, Act Now, and you've heard me mention it many times. It's a great book, co-written by my business coach, Regine Corona, along with Dr. Natalie Phillips. Right here on page 134, let me read to you what happens so we can go into this next phase of the change cycle together. As soon as you make the decision to change, which is phase 3, okay, remember, discontentment, breakthrough, now it's decision time. As soon as you make the decision to change, which is phase 3, you immediately trigger your reptilian brain, the lizard brain. Okay, I encourage you to go Google that, look into that. This is fascinating stuff, right? And this is going to help us understand what's happening here. Okay, you trigger your reptilian brain, the lizard brain, which is responsible for primitive brain functions, namely basic needs like procreation, food, and fear. It also controls instinct and self-preservation. Listen, this is an actual process that happens in our minds, okay? And this is really going to narrow it down. I mean, I think sometimes we have a hard time. I know I have a hard time accepting the fact that there's a fine line between myself and someone who I see out there who is successful, right? There's coaches that I look up to that are where I want to be eventually. And it's tough for me to understand that it's a fine line between where I'm at now and where they are. And the difference is how we react to this part of the decision process. Because, and again, this is page 134 in Act Now. Because your subconscious brain generally evaluates change as a threat. Did you hear that? Your subconscious brain generally evaluates change as a threat. So think about that. Now it starts to make sense why it's so hard to change. Because our mind literally is saying, wait a minute. You're in danger. You're in danger. But we're not in danger. We're actually going to do something that's going to be helpful. We're actually going to do something productive. We're actually going to get past this frustration that we have because we're not satisfied. We're going to make a decision to do something better. So why is my brain telling me that I'm in danger? Why is it acting like it's a threat? This is interesting. But this should also be encouraging to you, because if we can understand this process, we can dismantle it as well. We can break it apart. We can lay it out on the table and we can say, okay, what is this really about? Why am I really struggling? Why is this so difficult when I know this change is going to be better for me? It's going to be better for my family. It's going to be better for my health, for my life, right? But because your subconscious brain generally evaluates change as a threat, it immediately senses fear and goes into self-preservation mode. Now, fear is the fourth phase of this change cycle. You have to understand, and I know I've mentioned this before in other videos, and I think this is something that I can always go back to and I should always revisit when it makes sense. That self-preservation is what is going to just it's gonna freeze us up, right? Because we're trying to do something different. And even though this is a good change, even though this is change, the trajectory of this change is going to be in a positive direction. It's going to be helpful. It's going to be what we want, right? Our mind is just wired that way. It's wired that way. It wants us to be safe, because as painful as it may be, comfort, that's a hell of a drug. Comfort is a hell of a drug. You know, I use that from that Dave Chappelle skit, right, where he interviewed Rick James. Rick James is saying cocaine is a hell of a drug. Well, we're not talking about cocaine. We're talking about comfort. It's addicting. I'm addicted to comfort. That's why it takes no effort. It requires no effort for me to stay home and not go to the gym. It requires no effort at all. Right? I can stay home all day. I can sit on the couch and look at my phone for hours because it's comfortable. It's not requiring me to do anything. And then that's just what it is to be a human being. And all of us have different comfort zones, right? All of us are comfortable doing other. Some of us are comfortable staying busy. For some of us, you know, we need stuff to do, right? We need to constantly be on the go. And that's our comfort zone. And so the idea that, hey, you know what? I need to actually slow it down a little bit. Again, that fear kicks in. Like, whoa, wait a minute. Wait, hold on. You know, you're only safe, you're only comfortable when you're always on the go. Right? You're not necessarily, you know, getting things done, but you're staying busy. Right? Like we know something has to change. Okay, so we make a decision. Now the fear sets in. Why? Because that's how our brain's wired. And see, it's helpful to go through these things and dissect these things. And that's really why I like this book so much, Act Now. Because it gives us a breakdown of this entire process. What goes into this entire formula that equals success, right? People that are successful. Again, talking about people that I'm looking towards. What is that fine line? Well, the fine line is how did they handle the fear that came from making a decision to change? And let me see if I can give you an example of this, because really the way that we handle this is by making a plan, right? We have to have a strategy. And the reason why we can strategize is because we know this is going to happen, right? If you know it's coming, you can plan for it. Okay, so understand this: when you make a decision to change, to do something different, right? To go after a different pursuit, to reinvent yourself, to become a different person, so that you can begin to see different results. Now we know what's going to happen, right? We're not blindsided anymore. We understand. Okay, get ready for the mental process. Get ready for this battle. What are some things we can do? Well, we can strategize, right? Here's my suggestion: start writing down a plan. You know, like, hey, this isn't the fear that I'm sensing right now. It's not called for, right? This is not a threat to me. This is going to help me. So you start to write down, what am I trying to do? What am I trying to accomplish? Again, set small goals, right? Begin to set little accomplishments, right? They start to build into huge accomplishments, You've heard this saying before, the journey, what is it? Something about it. The journey of 1,000 miles begins with the first step, right? Or something like that. I probably messed it up. But the idea is that you can, we're thinking about the 1,000-mile journey. We're seeing the big picture. We're looking all the way down the road and we're seeing our success. But it starts with that first step. It starts with just that first decision, that first movement. And like I said in last week's video, even if it's in tiny, small increments that you're moving forward, it's still moving forward, right? So we've got to battle that as well, because we start to think like, well, I'm not doing enough, or I got to look like this, or I got to be like this. And it's like, no, it comes slowly. I've been working out for a year consistently. I feel great. I feel better, but I haven't reached the goal that I set for myself. And it come to find out, it's going to take a little more time than a year. Might take 2 more years. The point is, I'm not going to stop until I get there. The point is, I have learned to incorporate lifting weights as a part of my lifestyle. So I have accomplished, right? And I think back and I'm like, man, there's other things that I've done that I didn't think I could do. I graduated high school with a 1.9 GPA. I had to wait to get a call from my school counselor 3 days before graduation to say, hey, Josh, you made it, man. I barely made it, right? Last thing I was thinking about was going to get a degree in college. Okay, but fast forward. Since then, I got a master's degree and I've got a bachelor's degree. And both of those degrees I finished with over a 3.0 GPA. I did that. I was always terrible at math. I got A's in accounting, corporate finance. I made it out of statistics. I mean, I did it. And guess what? You can do it too. There's things that you might not think you can do, and guess what? You can. You can. What it comes down to, okay, the difference between me and someone else who I see who has more success than me, or they're in a spot that I want to be at eventually, is what they did in this phase of the change cycle. Did they make a left turn, which just brought them right back around? Because next week we're going to talk about, the next phase, right? Which is amnesia. We start to forget that feeling that drove us to make that change in the first place. All right? And that's a terrible place to be, because then it's just going to lead us right back to where we started. So did they make a left and give up, or did they make a right turn, which was a rocky, narrow path that's super hard and difficult because it's changed, because it's different. But that's the path that led them to their success. And that's the road I'm trying to go down. And that's the road I'm trying to help lead others down as well. That's part of the reason why I'm doing this video. That's part of the reason why I have this channel. That's why I want to be a life coach, to show people that they have a purpose. If they didn't realize they had a purpose, I'm going to reveal that to them. I'm going to help them see that. But what do? We get our brain, we know our brain's going to react, right? So we got to come up with a strategy. Hey, how am I going to overcome this fear? How am I going to look past this fear? How can I dismantle this and look at it and say, you know what, I don't need to go into self-preservation mode. I need to use this energy to push myself further. What am I going to do with it? It's really all about how we decide to handle it. How do we decide to deal with this situation? Okay. Here's another good one: fasting. If you've never tried fasting, you'll be amazed what depriving yourself of food. And I know that kind of sounds cruel. There's people out there that don't have access to food like we do in this world. And I just want to acknowledge that, I say this with all humility, that the fact that we even have the option to eat or not is a blessing. So let's not forget that. But fasting and abstaining from food or abstaining from something for a time, you will be surprised how much clarity you can gain. And I encourage you to try it. It's a discipline. It's not easy. I love when my dad used to say, why do they call it fasting when it's so slow, right? There's nothing fast about fasting. But I encourage you, because the clarity in your mind is amazing. And that's going to help you focus. That's going to help you, instead of, what the feeling that we gain from food, we begin to feel it with other things, our mind with focus, right? Breath work, something I'm a rookie to, right? I don't know much about it, but I have experienced a breath work session. And let me tell you, it's almost like fasting, but a lot faster, right? Like quick. What was it? The 2 breaths in from your stomach to your chest and then out. And then try that 10 times straight. And then the 10th time, hold your breath for a minute. That's all I got, right? I'm not a pro at it. I don't know. I just know what I learned when I went to that flow workshop. And it was amazing. Breath work, helpful, right? Gets you in a state of concentration, state of focus. Your mind is clear. You can begin to now feel that with affirmations. Affirmations is another one, right? Begin to tell yourself, no, I don't have to be afraid. No, I will be successful. I am intelligent. I am smart. I am creative. I am enough, right? You begin to fill your mind with those things. This is how we offset the fear. Because it's going to happen. It's natural. I just explained from the book. This is just a natural instinct that our brain has to help us to stay safe, right? It's seeing the change as a threat. Like, hey, there's a threat. You need to, all you need to worry about right now is preserving yourself. It's like, no, that's not true, right? And that's the difference. How we handle it, how we deal with it. I want to give you an example. Some of you know, or some of you may have heard of a comedian by the name of George Lopez. I remember when George Lopez first came on the scene years ago, and hearing his stand up, he was pretty hilarious, right? Funny, and he had us all laughing, right? But he's talking about things. He's talking about his childhood and being raised by his grandmother and how they were poor. Like, if you think about it, it's like, wait a minute, none of that stuff is funny. Like, it's not funny that he grew up in a dysfunctional home. It's not funny that he had a terrible childhood and didn't have a lot of joy as a kid. Like, none of this is funny. So why are we laughing? Well, we're laughing because what he was able to do was he was able to take those things, those experiences, and utilize them for his benefit. And that's exactly what we have to do here. When our brain starts to react, when it starts to tell us there's a threat because we're changing, because we're going to do something different, we have to handle that, and we have to make it work in our advantage, for our benefit. At the end of the day, listen, at the end of the day, we have no control over anyone as much as we have control over ourselves. We've got to decide that. All of us have it in us. All of us, we're all going to work at a different pace, right? And here's the thing. If you do succumb to the fear, if you do decide to go left, let me tell you this. It's not over. Don't beat yourself up. Guess what? When you come back to that phase of the change cycle, right? You're discontent with something. You reach a breaking point where you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You make that decision. This time around, prepare yourself. Prepare yourself for what you know is going to come. That fear, that anxiety, that alarm that's going off in your brain saying, hey, there's danger here because you're doing something different. Prepare yourself. That's all we can do. We can strategize now that we know what's going to happen. Okay, so I hope this is encouraging to you, because there's nothing wrong with you. If you tried to do things and you haven't been able to do it, there's nothing wrong with you. You're not a failure. You're not less than. You're not unintelligent. It's not that you don't have the skills or the brain to do it. You absolutely do. It's just that you didn't understand how this works, just like I didn't. But I found out. So now we know, and now we can prepare. And that's the best we can do, right? Because the fear is going to set in. The difference between where I'm at and those that I look up to where they are is how they handled that situation, right? So we gotta strategize, we gotta plan, we gotta come up with a way to utilize it for our benefit. That's all I got for today. Again, I appreciate everybody for watching my videos. I love doing these videos. I love this channel. I appreciate all of you and your support. And I'll see you next week.